Blessings, namaste, and love, everyone. I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. As always, thank you for offering me this opportunity to share with you my astrological and spiritual insights. And in this segment, we are looking to the month of February 2026. Now, let me begin by emphasizing we are coming into our first eclipse season of 2026. We have a solar eclipse in February, and we will have a lunar eclipse in March. Now, I will address the solar eclipse in this segment and the lunar eclipse in my March video. I always suggest to recognize and reflect on what was taking place at the time of the prior eclipse season, which was in the fall in September of 2025. What was being stirred up for you? What was coming together? What did you initiate that at that time with the solar eclipse which took place then? These eclipses are opportunities to perhaps complete whatever you commenced at that time, or move forward, catapult forward with whatever you began at that time as well. Also reflect on everything that came together for you. What is culminating? What do you feel is coming to a turning point? Is coming to a turning point? What is culminating for you? And allow yourselves to just, certainly as always, remain grounded. The full moons do intensify much energy. A full moon is a culmination of what has been stirring, what is going on beneath the surface, in the shadows. We do have a full moon on February 1st, which I will address momentarily. But I also would like to touch upon the changing of signs with Saturn and Neptune. We also have Uranus moving direct this month as well. It has been in my intention to create videos specific to the outer planet cycles of experiences, only because sometimes I hesitate including too much information in one segment, because certainly it can be overwhelming. But we do want you to recognize how to employ the energies. Remember, whatever occurs astrologically, whatever will come to pass, how something will ultimately unfold, it's really dependent upon how we are embracing, how we are crafting the energy. And as I'm always suggesting to recognize, when we are understanding how to work with the cycles of energy, with these cycles of experience, understanding the importance of going with the flow, we welcome and create more beneficial outcomes to these experiences, and we are able to counteract any potential negative effects of certain alignments. And also really just reflect on when something appears to be negative, sometimes it really is a blessing in disguise. And when we are really understanding, especially from a spiritual and metaphysical standpoint, what is underlying all of these experiences, we make the most of any situation. We're not really here to experience hardships. Much of the difficulties we experience does originate from our own personal vibrational frequencies, if you will, whatever it is that we are casting in motion. And as I've said many times, the creative process is thought, word, and deed. And when those three elements are in alignment with one another, then we are empowered to bring about the experiences and the desires we truly would like to enjoy while we are here. When those three elements are not incongruent with one another, that's when we often, what I refer to as, miscreate some of the experiences that we have on our journeys. And as always, we are here, at least I am here, to inspire you to recognize the power of your being, which is a good segue into the February 1st full moon that we will be experiencing. Now, our full moon is on, as I said, it's on February 1st. The exact time of the full moon is 5:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, the moon is in the sign of Leo. The sun is in the sign of Aquarius. At a full moon, the sun and the moon are at opposite signs of one another. The sun has been transiting the sign of Aquarius, so the full moon is in the sign of Leo. We also have a Leo rising in the chart that we cast for the United States. Now, being that this is where I reside, I cast these charts with the full moon, with the United States, with Washington, D.C. as the location for the full moon. And what I'm emphasizing is that we have a Leo full moon as well as a Leo rising. Now, Leo represents certainly many things, but what I want to emphasize with this full moon is that it's another opportunity to recognize our self-sovereignty. We are very much becoming a self-sovereign humanity, race, population. Certainly that comes with great responsibility. We need to be very much accountable and allow ourselves to really be accountable for all that we create and miscreate. Be responsible for first and foremost ourselves. You see, once we create these changes, the beneficial changes within ourselves, that's what we radiate to the all of humanity. As in the adage which says, be the change you would desire to enjoy in the world. You know, there are many concerns with what's going on in the outside world, and I'm always suggesting to recognize, honor what you are experiencing. Certainly validate, or rather certainly allow yourselves to honor the concerns that you have, but also recognize that many times some of these worries, if you will, they never actually unfurl. I always suggest to, when there are concerns, make a list of those concerns, whatever they might be. Make a list and periodically revisit the list and acknowledge if any of that has actually come to pass for you personally. Remember, whatever we are being shown in the outside world, it's only an interpretation of what someone else is assessing. Honor what you are actually experiencing in your own personal lives. This is all part of each one of us becoming sovereign beings, and which I've also referred to as being the master of our destiny. You know, we're not conventionally taught to recognize our power. And a grand component of these times that we're in right now is to honor the power of our being. And this is this Leo energy and this Leo full moon. It's, as I said, it's willpower, it's self-sovereignty. It's also creativity. Leo as well as Libra are very creative signs. Actually, the air signs, air and fire elements can be very creative. But the Leo element, the Leo archetype, if you will, is the one which most represents creativity. And we're all creative beings. I've said this many times as well, that creativity is not specific to art and music. Creativity is multifaceted. Creativity is the imagination, or begins with the imagination, the ideas, that fire that ignites the dynamic of the mind, which inspires and brings forth ideas, the imagination, and then bringing all that to form. That's creative. And creativity, as I said, it is not specific to art and music, and it is multifaceted. And we are all creative beings, and the creativity, that creative potential, is very specific and unique to who it is that we are. So at this full moon, I suggest to allow yourself to honor where you are creative and recognize you are a creative being, but also that you are very much the master of your destiny, and that we are sovereign beings, that we are creating all that we experience and we just enjoy to create. And also allow yourself, as I said, to recognize and honor that creative process of thought, word, and deed, and to be certain that those three components, those three elements, are in alignment with one another. We also hear the adage, walk the walk and talk the talk. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And recognize how when we equal all of those components, we bring forth what we really truly desire to enjoy. But then also we have the ability to recognize how we are possibly miscreating some of the experiences in our lives. I do want to touch upon a little bit more also to that love element. I've spoken in past videos how with the extraordinary alignments specifically between Neptune and Pluto, which they will be in what we refer to as in orb with one another until about 2032, 2033. And in very simple terms, this alignment between Neptune and Pluto is offering everyone to recognize the power of love, as well as the ability for that element of love to heal much discord, certainly within ourselves first, and then in the outside world. This is an opportunity, as well as in conjunction with this full moon, to honor and recognize the power and really understand what that power is capable of creating for ourselves and the all of humanity. Once we know it, once we recognize that within ourselves, then we are inspired to demonstrate that power. First there comes that knowing, and then there's the next step, which is demonstrating that knowing. It's one thing to have an encyclopedia of knowledge in our minds, but unless we are able to demonstrate all of that, it's really honestly quite useless. That's actually the difference between knowledge and intelligence. Knowledge is having just a vast amount of information. The intelligence comes from being able to apply all of that information in ways that are very much serving not only to ourselves, but to the all of humanity. And once again, I cannot emphasize this element enough, recognizing and understanding the importance and the profundity of the power of love, especially at this full moon. Now, I mentioned that Uranus will be moving direct, and that will take place on February 3rd. Uranus is completing its passage of Taurus, and it will be going into Aries shortly. That's another video that I'd like to create specifically on the topic of Uranus moving into Gemini. Uranus requires about 7 years to transit a sign, so it's been in Taurus for about 7 years. And in Taurus, it's really kind of shaking up our relationship with, among many things, especially with money and financial matters. Every one of us does have the desire to enjoy the comforts, the creature comforts of financial blessings. We're all very much intended to have those constituents in our lives. We're not here to struggle financially. We're really not taught to really understand, first of all, our relationship with monetary matters, but also too how sometimes we miscreate lack in our lives. As I'm talking about the ability to be creative, we do sometimes we create, but sometimes we miscreate, and sometimes we're not recognizing how we're actually miscreating lack in our lives. So these last 7 years really have been giving us the opportunity to reflect on also what is important to us. Where are our values? Where are our priorities? There's nothing wrong with having financial abundance. It's when there's the need that we feel invalid if we don't have all these material things, or we don't have a bulging bank account. It's when there's that need that doesn't necessarily serve a greater purpose. It's also to just really know that whatever is required for you to enjoy the creature comforts of this human experience, the universe will provide for us, or rather, we will allow ourselves to bring forth those blessings, because we don't always recognize the universe can't interfere with our free will. The universe cannot bring us what it is we desire if we don't allow it, and it starts first and foremost within ourselves. I'm not discrediting the power of the universe, and unless we are recognizing our own creative being, our own creative power, our own self-sovereignty, the universe, because we live in a free will society, the universe can't override the laws of the universe, which is free will, and nothing has the power to override our free will. And again, this is just reinforcing the element, that constituent of being self-sovereign. Once Uranus transits into the sign of Gemini, one of the many things that we will be offered the opportunity to really understand and experience is the ability of telecommunication and the ability to communicate with one another through our thoughts. You know, the spirit realm doesn't have vocal cords. The spirit realm uses feelings and those vibrational frequencies of thought patterns for communication. And that is one of the many elements that we will be offered the opportunity to really recognize and embrace and employ as we move forward through these magnificent times that we are experiencing. Now, our next new moon, which will take place on February 17th, is in the sign of Aquarius. It's also our solar eclipse. Now, it's February 17th. The exact time of the solar eclipse is 7:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this solar eclipse, it's in the late degree, the last stages degrees of Aquarius. We also have an Aquarius rising at the last degree of Aquarius. I also like to touch upon to allow yourselves to be very aware, acutely aware and mindful of all that you are generating at the time, around the time of a solar eclipse, especially the day before, the day of, and the day after the solar eclipse. A solar eclipse, it's a new moon, it's an intensified new moon, and whatever it is that we are engaging with, especially energetically, and primarily energetically at the time of the eclipse, it's going to stay with us for a long period of time. This is why we're offered, just like every month, we're offered 3 days prior to the new moon to energetically prepare for the new moon. With a solar eclipse, quite often we're given 3 months, even 6 months to really prepare for what we will be beginning with, casting in motion at the time of a solar eclipse. So if you haven't been reflecting on what no longer serves a purpose for you in these last few months, just kind of step all of that up and just really allow yourself to be acutely mindful of everything that you are experiencing and being, at least the day before, the day of, and the day after the solar eclipse. Remember, all of that energetically will remain with us for a long period of time. You know, if there's something that you are desiring to begin around the time of the eclipse, continue to reflect on whatever that might be and allow yourself to be as acutely clear with those intentions. Now, the balsamic moon, as I said, that's the time of the dark moon. It's about a few days before the new moon, which will be on February 13th. That is the auspicious opportunity to prepare for the new moon, which, as I said, it's a solar eclipse and it begins on February 17th. Now, what's interesting about this solar eclipse is that, one, it's at the late degree of Aquarius, and there's a last degree of Aquarius rising. Now, all the signs are measures in degrees and minutes, and each sign is 30 degrees. Now, the last few degrees, about 27, 28, 29, are what we refer to as the critical degree. And whenever that point is activated, it does indicate a significant turning point. It's also an indication of a significant ending. You know, being in the sign of Aquarius, and I believe I've also mentioned this quite often as well. We're hearing about the age of Aquarius, which, as I've also mentioned, by my calculations, may not necessarily come to pass in our lifetime. And that being said, it does not indicate that we cannot enjoy the blessings of a golden age, a time of humanity and a time of oneness. And for that to fully unfold throughout the entirety of humanity might require just a little bit more time. But I don't say that to discourage anyone. Remember, at any moment, there are many blessings. We can enjoy many blessings in this human experience. We just need to really choose to bring to form and enjoy those blessings. You know, Aquarius is the sign of, like I said, the golden age, the age of Aquarius, a time of oneness, brotherhood. This eclipse, it's an opportunity to really just kind of let go of whatever does not permit all of that to come to form for ourselves personally as well as collectively. Remember, it's got to first start with each of us individually before anything can unfurl in the outside world. And because it's in the opposite sign of Leo, it actually does reinforce what I was referring to earlier regarding that love element and that power of love. We really are being given opportunities to recognize wherever in our own lives there is a lack of love, or in the outside world there might be a lack of love. And remember, whatever we're being shown regarding what takes place out there, it's only an interpretation of another. Allow yourself to just reflect on your own lives. Remember, it's got to start with us first. I cannot emphasize that enough. So recognize, even leading up to this eclipse, where is there a lack of love in your life, or where are you not allowing yourselves really to experiencing love? You know, another part of all of this is to embrace the element of self-love. Many times, you know, so many desire to enjoy a love experience with another person. You know, certainly that's honorable, and we are all very much intended to enjoy those blessings. However, unless we first create that element of love within ourselves, whatever we may attract in the outside world, unless it starts within ourselves first with that constituent of love, anything else will be less than. So just to reinforce about the importance of creating self-love, embracing self-love, and really honoring that for yourself. Remember, what we experience, whatever it is we experience within yourself, that's what we're casting out to humanity. And I'm certain most would agree with me that we all would enjoy to experience a society, a world that is encompassed in love. And unless we create it within ourselves first, it will take a lot longer for it to unfold in the outside world. And as I said, be mindful and become clear of what you would like to experience approaching this new moon solar eclipse, especially embracing and really allowing yourself to to bring forth and to experience that love element within yourself first and foremost. Now, on February 18th, the sun will move into the sign of Pisces. You know, Pisces deals with, when this in April, that's really when the year is intended to begin, not on January 1st, when the sun still is in the signs that reflects things regarding within the self and beneath the surface, especially with Pisces. If you haven't begun your spring cleaning as the sun is in the sign of Pisces, that is the most auspicious opportunity to really clear out the cobwebs, not only within ourselves, but in our dwelling place as well. It was the prophet Kahil Gibran who said that our homes are our larger bodies. Whatever takes place, whatever manifests in our homes, is a reflection of what's going on within the self of all the occupants of the home. So certainly we want to clear out those cobwebs within ourselves, and then begin to clear out the cobwebs that may physically have been manifesting in our home. If there's clutter in your home, it's a time to clear all of that out as well. That clutter in our homes is also a reflection of what's going on within ourselves, especially regarding the clutter of the mind. You know, these days with all these electronic interferences, it does present even greater challenges to maintain clarity of the mind. However, it is not impossible when we allow ourselves to recognize the spiritual tools that are available for us to shield ourselves against all those energetic interferences. We also need to recognize the amount of time perhaps that we are on these and interacting with these electronics, because it does interfere with our mental clarity. Pisces is also the sign of the psychic faculties, and something that I've also touched upon many times as well, that we're all intuitive beings. We all have a psychic ability, if you will, but it doesn't mean that we're all intended to go out and conduct psychic consultations. It's one so that we can be aware of how we are being guided by spirit, to trust our instincts regarding situations in our lives. And in order to do that, we need to be clear in our etheric being and grounded with the energies of the earth. If our etheric being is all riddled with these electromagnetic components and particles, and we're not grounded with the energies of the earth, then we're not clearly aware, and we can't trust, or we're not trusting of what we are being shown intuitively that comes to us from the spirit realm. So certainly the sun's passage through Pisces is the opportunity to really recognize those intuitive faculties, to trust really these experiences and how we are all being guided by spirit and the universe, so that we may enjoy the many blessings of this human experience. Now, lastly, we do have our next Mercury retrograde phase coming up. Mercury will move retrograde on February 26th. It will move direct on March 20th. And remember, not until Mercury moves past the point at which it turned retrograde are we not completely out of the retrograde experiences. And that is on April 9th. Mercury moves retrograde February 26th. It moves direct on March 20th. And we're out of that shadow period. That's what we refer to it as, the shadow period, on April 9th. Now, Mercury will move retrograde in the sign of Pisces. So that's another auspicious opportunity to clear out the cobwebs of the mind, especially in the sign of Pisces, but also to recognize the energetic, intuitive receptivity that we have that comes through the ethers. You know, Mercury in Pisces does intensify the mental dynamic, the dynamic of the mind in terms of its connectivity to the vibrations of the frequencies of the ethers. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but that's actually how I was just inspired to define that. It's also an opportunity to really go deep within yourselves, and also to honor if there are any mental conditions, mental programs that are not allowing you, again, to enjoy what you truly desire to enjoy in our lives. You know, quite often we don't understand what is going on in the background. You know, the mind is very much like a computer. And I've used this analogy before, that just like on a computer, when there's malware installed on the system, sometimes we don't even recognize that it's being installed in the system. Sometimes that happens within ourselves as well, that we don't understand how certain conditions are being programmed into our mind. And although those elements, that malware, it operates in the background. We don't necessarily know it's there. We're not aware it's there, but it's going on in the background, and it's slowing down the performance of the computer. The same occurs with us in terms of this human experience. When there are existing those conditions in the mind that reside deep in the caverns of our mind that we're not aware of, that many times are placed there in our early formative years, they're going on in the background, and we're not recognizing how they are interfering with our overall wellness. So this, again, and sometimes, you know, that requires quite a bit of courage to look at all of that. That being said, it's not impossible. So perhaps let yourself have these moments where and many times it can be enjoyed through, or rather experienced through meditation, to go deep within yourself and really honor what's going on in there that doesn't allow you to really experience the life that you desire. So much of what those like myself, or why those like myself have embarked on these journeys, is to inspire you to really know your greatest power and potential. At least that's my mission statement as to why even I wrote, in part, why I created my book, The Planets Align So Rare, to inspire you to really know your greatest potential. And to do that, we have to recognize what doesn't allow us to really demonstrate that potential. And many times it does connect with these conditions of the mind that just operate in the shadows, and we're not always aware of them. So this Mercury retrograde, it is a most auspicious opportunity to go deep within yourself, clear out those cobwebs of the mind, and really restructure those thoughts, change your thoughts. With the adage, change your thoughts, change your life. Let yourself have the time, dedicate the time to really going within, reflecting on those conditions, and restructure those programs so that you may enjoy all the blessings that you would desire to experience while you are here. I hope that wasn't too intense. I know there were a lot of things that I touched upon. It is my intention to create specific videos, for example, the outer planet cycles, so that we touch upon one element and not so many elements in these segments. So as always, I trust that whatever it is that comes through will inspire you to know the power of your being. Once again, I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. Thank you for offering me this opportunity, and we will see each other again very, very soon. Many blessings. Namaste.